Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 87 in the series. This one is called Design-O-Rama because Spencer, my husband, is coming on. We're going to talk about sweater drawing, sweater sketching, schematics. I've got a new design on the needles I want to talk to you guys about. So that's why it's Design-O-Rama today. Lots of fun stuff. Plus I have tons of... We ended our Cowls for knitting and translation and for the Distitch cowl. So I've got some prize winners for that. I've got announcements of winners for the Clara Parks books. And I've got a new giveaway. So that'll all happen at the end. And in the middle, we'll talk about sweaters and sketching and doodling and all that kind of good stuff. I do want to take a minute here to thank all of you who have sent in Ko-fis for the last month or so. That's Debbie, Cynthia C, Pam, Susan, Amanda, Cynthia L, Rachel, Louise, Patricia, Sandra, and Margarita. Thank you so much for helping to support this podcast with your sweet donations. I really appreciate them. They help cover a lot of different costs for the podcast, so thank you. And Alicia, a special thank you to you. I really appreciate your donation to the cast in the last month, so thank you. I hope you're out there watching, and just know that I really appreciate you guys sending in coffees for me. Thank you. And on that note, there's been a really sad announcement in the knitting community this week from Andrea and Andrew of Fruity Knitting. It turns out that Andrew is sick right now. He has a brain tumor, and the two of them support themselves through their podcast. So they do have Patreon support. And I know that a lot of people, I was just so touched. I watched their YouTube message and I was so touched by so many in the community who just said, no matter what, whether or not the podcast comes out or not, you have my support. In fact, I upped my Patreon subscription, that kind of thing. So I think it would be wonderful to see even more support going their way from the community. And for that reason, if anybody donates coffees to me in the next month until the end of November, all of that is going to be donated to Fruity Knitting via their PayPal link. So if you want to donate to them, feel free to do it directly to them. And I think it's PayPal me/Fruity Knitting. You can also become a Patreon for their podcast and help support them with a monthly donation. And like I said, any coffees that come into me in the next month and a half, I guess, till the end of November, I'm going to donate them directly to Andrea and Andrew to help with their medical expenses and just living expenses while they're trying to keep everything together and just take a break and, work on Andrew's health as much as possible. So if you want to donate that way, I'll be more than happy to amass our donation from Knitting the Stash and send it over to Fruity Knitting. So as heartbreaking as it is to hear about Andrew's illness, it's also been wonderful to just hear and see the knitting community coming together and rallying around them. So keep it up, and I send my best wishes to both Andrew and Andrea and their daughter Madeline at this time, and hope that you get all kinds of good healing vibes from this wonderful community out here. So we're going to jump into some knitting stuff on the show now, maybe some design stuff. I thought I'd bring Spencer on and we'd talk about some of the drawings that we do for sweaters, or not for sweaters, just for fun. So I'll go into that segment and then I'll come back and tell you about this new design, which I have not yet named, and I might need some help with that. All right, onward to our guest for the show. So Spencer's on the cast today to talk a little bit about drawing and designing sweaters because he's like a big drawer. I don't know if you guys know this. Drawer. What would you call it? Illustrator?
I got a drawer.
What are you, illustrator?
I draw a little bit on the side.
He loves to draw. He's got notebooks full of drawings and everything. But he seems to draw. Like I draw, I'm terrible. I'm a scribbler, as Zach would say.
Scribble scrabble.
Scribble scrabble. So I only draw when I draw anything I just draw schematics for sweaters and things like that, and I just did it like in a utilitarian kind of way. But
and I've always thought they were pretty good, her drawings of sweaters. They have a real
everything else I draw, he's just kind of like.
But they have a real character to them.
Well, I love it. Is it?
So we thought we'd have a drawing showdown.
Oh God, was it? It was a showdown. I didn't even know it was a showdown.
Yeah. With each of us taking 8 minutes to draw sweaters. And then we're going to compare them and talk about them. Yeah.
So I think we should do Spencer's first.
All right.
He's the guest.
Okay, so what did you think about my sweater drawing?
Things I loved about Spencer's sweater drawing is that it's always like It's always more about the people and their expressions and like the way they wear their sweaters than about the sweaters themselves. Like the sweaters themselves are kind of vague and amorphous and kind of like, well, I guess you could see like someone maybe wearing something like that, but you could also be like, that doesn't fit quite right.
I tried to draw some without the people, but they looked really wacky. So then I would put the people in there, and they just worked out a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching him draw, and I was just thinking of like he was really paying a lot of attention to like drawing the feet of the people, like long after the sweater had like come and gone.
How can you pay attention to the sweater if you don't have the feet?
What? Well, that's the thing. Is like that's why I like your drawings, because they're in motion, and they're people who actually wear their sweaters. Like they've got patches on them, and
I tried to draw a few holes in there. You see a few holes?
Yeah, they're kind of like, they're a little too short, a little too long. Sometimes they fit really well. They're like different size people. They're different kinds, sweatshirts and cardigans, and I don't know. I appreciate that they look like they're actually being worn. Whereas, like sweater schematics, you're kind of like, they don't actually help you understand a sweater, but this gives life to like what you're.
So is a sweater schematic a thing y'all do? Like in every plan, is there a sweater schematic?
Yeah, a lot of patterns will have sweater schematics.
It's pretty mechanical, like a perfect circle for the neck.
No, actually, a lot of them are pretty organic. The ones I find most helpful are kind of like organic, and they're by indie designers, and they're doing what we're doing. We're just kind of drawing out.
Okay.
But some of them are more measured than others. Like proportions need to be relatively in place.
Oh,
so that
proportions.
so that you can actually tell. Like,
it's not just full rando.
Yeah, no. You're like, okay, the yoke is X, in proportion to whatever. But they often need to be big enough so that you can draw numbers in there, like massive amounts of numbers for the different. And schematics are super helpful because if you're trying to read a pattern and modify it, you need to know what they're going for, like what the designer is going for in terms of measurement.
Did you get a sense of what I was going for in terms of measurement?
On some of them. Like the one in the middle where the guy's got them elbow patches. You definitely get a sense of proportion on that one. It seems like the most...
You do?
Yeah, I could make a sweater based on that. It's like a very Charlie Brown kind of sweater. You could totally make that sweater.
I was thinking about Charlie Brown.
Yeah. And even the hoodie in the front, I mean, you have to imagine that it's like... maybe on I just assumed that a really tall person put on like a really short person's hoodie. But proportionally the hoodie's good. You can see like where the color work or whatever that is in the
that was the one you made me.
Oh. It doesn't have a hood.
That was an exact replica.
It doesn't have a hood.
What do you mean it doesn't have a hood? The hood's right there.
But in the version I made you doesn't have a hood.
Oh, really?
No. In your mind it has a hood. That's
I
good.
thought she made me a hoodie. All right, moving on to Melissa's drawings.
Yes, please.
Can we do that?
Mine feels so much more serious.
Zup, zup. My turn.
Much more serious than yours. Oh.
Okay, this is a classic critique.
Oh boy, here we go.
Awesome! I love these drawings. They're so good. Okay, so what you have here is a bunch of sweaters, as opposed to a bunch of half-assed people fucking around wearing t-shirts or whatever. So I think they look really great. In particular, I really love it that the one on the lower right has the little chunks. It's been like taken apart, like a schematic. It looks like if this was like an automotive drawing, it would be like, bumper, fender, the sideboard, all that kind of stuff. But it's cool. And there's like if shaping, it's just this sort of like weird reference. Like who knows what that means? If shaping. I mean, come on, that is so esoteric.
Let's think about this. If for most women's some women's sweaters have shaping to them, and that shaping is going to happen around the waist, not the hips or whatever. So if you need to do shaping, you got to know the distance from your hips to your waist, and then from your waist to your bust.
So the way you drew it was angular, no shaping.
Right. But if you were going to do shaping, it would kind of come in there.
Contracting.
Right. You got to do decreases and increases or increase and decrease if you're going up and top down.
Now, some of these have a little flair to them. Like the one in the upper right, the arms are bent through some kind of osteoporosis. Like if you were to wear that, you'd actually have to have like rubber limbs.
They look like elephant trunks to me. Like if an elephant.
And the one that has the black sleeves, so over on the right.
Yeah.
It also, it looks like somebody's in there, kind of swashing around, a little wind going on.
Yeah. Now, if we had colored pencils and stuff, that would be even better.
Oh,
yeah.
Colored pencils.
Let me show you.
Oh, boy, okay.
This is what happens when I get my colored pencils out.
That is so good.
See
I love that one.
This was the afterthought cardigan that I drew out because it was going to be in like Sweet Georgia yarns, and it was going to have all these different colors and stuff. So.
But I think they're neat. So you in your drawing, you were kind of playing with this twisty, cabley dealio.
Yeah.
And then you sort of took that in a button-down version and then a crew neck version?
No, so one's the front and... See, I usually draw front and backs of sweaters.
That's why it says front and back?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Because then you need to know that if you're going to design an actual sweater, like what the back looks like versus the front, because they could be very different animals.
Oh, yeah. Now, speaking of animals, right in the center of your drawing, there's a very interesting sweater. It's kind of scrabbled out.
That was later. We didn't. No, we're not going to include that in the film.
Later on,
I was just drawing.
She was doing some drawing. She drew this. Now is that a foot of like a Wolverine?
Sure.
Is that
it does look like a turkey. It looks like a turkey foot. You know.
I mean, the thing is, that's hard to draw a sweater.
I like the other ones I drew after I stopped being filmed. I think they were pretty good.
You want to show those?
We can.
She kept drawing as I was drawing, then she was drawing.
I drew the one that I'm wearing right now, right here.
That's really
that
awesome.
was pretty good. And then I drew some kind of like sailor neck sweater down here, and
I like it.
This like Henley thing over here, which I really like Henleys. So, yeah.
Henley, musician.
Oh God.
Bob Henley.
So what's the deal with sweaters? Like, what do you think is? I think yours are more fun.
Well.
Less practical.
I think yours are more fun.
Less practical, but more fun.
What I was thinking is that when I draw little dudes and stuff, I never draw sweaters. It's always summertime in my drawings. People have t-shirts on, skateboards, riding around, having fun. Like, why would I draw someone in a sweater? It just seems heavy duty.
But maybe now you'll start.
But now I'm thinking, when I illustrate the Knitting the Stash comic book series, we might need to have sweaters.
That's a great idea. We should have a little zine.
We may have to have some sweaters.
You did one for the bus. Would you do one for us?
Oh yeah, totally. We gotta do that.
That would be so much fun.
So yeah, but I just usually don't draw sweaters. I think my sweaters look more like t-shirts.
Yeah, but they're really like... I like the one with the arrow up the center. That's the other thing, is you always design the... Like when you do design sweaters, you have to design them with like intarsia.
This one. Intarsia? What the intar... Okay, go on. I often design sweaters with intarsia. Can we get a little explication here? I don't have Wikipedia open. What the...
Are you done?
Intarsia.
Okay. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong because I've always pronounced it that way.
Was it French or something?
It's basically where you have like a different color shape that's nice. You can't do color work because if you were to do color work, you'd come around with one color, you'd have to stop with that color, start with another color for a very long time, and unless you were carrying floats across the back in a crazy way, it's basically blocks of color that you would insert like this. Like if you were to do this arrow,
how do you insert a big block?
You have to be willing to work in a lot of ends, usually.
But that's intarsia? Mm-hmm. Oh. But you
like,
gotta do that.
If you wanted to add like a shape, like an arrow or a block or bright orange circle in the middle of your sweater, you'd probably need to do intarsia to make that happen. Yeah.
What do I just dye that stuff?
You could double stitch it.
Like a duct tape kind of thing?
You could duplicate stitch it.
Oh, on top?
Yeah, on top.
Yeah. But doesn't the bottom stitch show through a little bit?
A little bit, but you could do that with your arrow.
So that's kind of a cool thing. You have one person draw a sweater, and the other person has to figure out how the hell to knit it.
Oh, God.
No?
That could be our next cowl.
That could... Oh.
Spencer's
cowl.
Like, no.
Knit along.
Yeah.
I always think you're saying C-O-W-L.
Cowl.
Like cowl.
How do you... Cowl.
Cowl.
Not cowl.
Well, when you say it, I think you say cowl.
See? Cowl and cowl are different.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Knit along. That'd be cool, though.
Yeah.
Draw some wacky-ass stuff and then...
See what happens.
Yeah.
See if anybody's willing to try to design it and make it.
Well, I gotta go check out these drawings of sweaters now in y'all's patterns.
Yeah, they're really cool.
See what they look like and stuff. Get some perspiration out of them.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, Jeffy.
Thanks for having me on the cast. The story with me this weekend is that I ran out of welding gas.
This is why he's here.
I've got to use my half-ass welder, my flux core welder, and that's what I'm going to go do right now. It's the worst, but...
I've told him to at least lock the dogs out of the workshop so they don't go blind staring at his welding machine.
Welding machine?
Welding, his welds. I don't go outside when he's welding. Like, I don't go anywhere near the shop when he's welding because he just does it out in the driveway. And I worry about all the poor delivery people that show up, like the mailman and whatever, like, you're just out there welding.
Everyone knows it's common sense. You don't stare at the weld when it's happening. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for having me on the cast.
See ya. So I hope you guys enjoyed having Spencer come on the cast there. It's always fun to have him come on and banter a little bit and talk about sweater design, especially because I've always loved his drawings. It's one of the things that he, I noticed first about him when I met him. It's just he was like always doodling these little faces and these little drawings, and they've always endeared me to him. So I appreciate the chance to talk to him about them. And I always love it if I mention anything about sweaters, he just starts doodling them, and it's fun to see them kind of come to life in a way that a schematic just doesn't come to life in the way that he can draw. So anyway, yeah, I have, and this all kind of started because I was drawing up a design for this sweater. And so I figure I'll talk to you guys about it for a little while. So I've had the yarn for this sweater for a little while because I had been planning to knit the Descent pullover by Andrea Rangel. And I decided against it once I started swatching, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So the yarn is the Lana fingering weight from Green Mountain Spinnery, and Green Mountain Spinnery is a cool co-op. I think they're in Vermont, if I'm remembering right. And this is in the Baraska colorway, which is a very kind of dark gray. I'll show you the actual yarn that looks like this. It's a beautiful, beautiful, deep, rich, kind of almost like a slate gray, with a little purple background in the background. And then the mohair that I've mixed with it in this middle segment comes from King Fiber, Q-I-N-G. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Is that King Fiber? Somebody will correct me, I hope. And this is hand dyed in the UK. This is a kid mohair silk. So it's 70% kid mohair and 30% silk. And this is in the colorway Slate. And when I saw this yarn, this is this beautiful mohair, which also has a little bit of a purpley thing going on with the gray. So you can imagine when I saw these two together, I thought, haha, this will be a pretty, pretty sweater. And so I started swatching, and I swatched first just with the gray, the Green Mountain Spinnery gray. And I love this yarn. I've used it to knit sweaters. I knit the Scale Gras sweater from LB Hand Knits in this yarn, in the Lana fingering from Green Mountain Spinnery. So I knew when I went to Wisconsin Sheep and Wool a couple years back that I wanted to stop at their booth and get enough yarn for another sweater. So that's what I did. I picked up this yarn there. And then I picked up the King Fiber online because I really started to get into mohair. As you know, I knit that little mohair bolero kind of thing, and I just really am curious about mohair, and I'm having some fun with it. So this was the swatch in the slate mohair, and I knit them together, and I just loved the effect because it kind of, the mohair lights up the gray, and the gray kind of deepens the mohair, I think. So I have this triple swatch going on, and as I had this swatch, I thought to myself, God, I really love that contrast. I love being able to see the straight wool here, the blend, and the mohair. And so I'd love to have a sweater that showed off kind of all three of these, because it just, to me, this is like such a happy swatch. So instead of doing the Descent pullover, I decided to just design a pullover. And so it's a bottom-up sweater. There's not any shaping in the body in terms of waist shaping, but it does have a couple of nice design elements to it that I wanted to make sure to incorporate. So for example, on the 2x2 ribbing down here, I started with a tubular cast on because that creates a really cool edge to a sweater. I think it's just a nice thing to do. And then in the back, I did some short row shaping right up in here to lift the back up. So that, I think you can see it there. You can see the short rows right in here. Lift up the back, and what I'm going to do with the design is to create the effect of this swatch. The ribbing, as you can see, is in the dark gray. The main body of the sweater is in the blend. And then I'm going to do a crew neck, and the crew neck ribbing will be in the dark gray. I've put on the back here, you can start to see the shoulders, I've put a strip of the darker gray. It will be up here, it'll be it'll be 1.5 inches wide, so it'll be as wide as this lower band, right up at the top here. It'll almost look like saddle shoulders, so there'll be 1.5 inches of the dark gray right here on top of the mohair blend. And then the sleeves are going to be in the wool. So it's going to look a little bit like one of those baseball shirts with that are usually raglans, where the sleeves are a different color than the body. But in this case, the sleeves will be, I'll set the armholes and then I'll just pick up stitches around the armholes and knit down because I just like doing that. You guys know that. For those of you who have been here a long time, you know I like picking up stitches around the sleeve, doing short rows, and then just knitting down. It's just the way I like doing sleeves. It's easier than a set-in sleeve. And for this, I don't need to worry too much about needing structure for any reason. So I think that that sleeve method will work pretty well. Plus, that gives me a chance to kind of play around with the colors a little bit so that the sleeves will be in the gray, the darker gray, and the body's in this mohair. Now, of course, this presented some challenges because when you look at the gauge of any of these, they're slightly different. As you'd imagine, they're off by 1 or 2 stitches. So you got to kind of play with that a little bit to figure out if you need to adjust anything. The amount that I'm going to put up at the top here is so small that I'm not going to worry about it. And then with the ribbing, the amount is actually pretty small and the ribbing is stretchy, so I don't worry about it too much. Now with the sleeves, I will try to go with a different gauge, with the gauge for this rather than the gauge for this. So that should be just one of the little things that has to be kind of tweaked to make this work. It's not that big of a deal. Hopefully I can actually write it up as a pattern and hire a tech editor to help me size it so that it'll be available from, you know, say like a size 32 all the way up to a size 60 or something like that. And if you're interested in having a kind of mohair, fun, just simple pullover, then it'll be a sweater that you all could knit, which would be really fun for me. So I need to name it. And I need to do a couple of other figuring things. I figured I'm going to do the, I was going to do a v-neck. I think I'm going to do a crew neck. You never know what'll happen. But I think I'm going to go with a kind of pretty crew neck that's not too high. And the other thing I want to do is, I have to see how this works out. On the sleeves, I'd like to create a kind of, let's see if I can do this, a kind of stripe that mimics the different fabrics. So to have like a little bit of a mohair stripe, a little bit of a blend, and kind of transition back to the gray. And it would be kind of in this area of the sleeve. So like right up in here, right around the elbow. I just think it would be kind of cool, and it will effectively show off all the different cool yarns that are involved in this sweater. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking for this one. I'd love to hear your comments on it and if you have any advice, things to think about, things that you'd like to see. And I'm hopeful that I should be able to get this thing knitted and written up and maybe find a good tech editor maybe within the next month or so. We'll see. Yeah, but I'll keep you up to date on it. It's been really fun to work on it, and it was one of the other reasons I decided not to do the descent pullover, honestly, was because my hand was still healing from my pinky being broken. And this is all very, very thin yarn, as you can see here. Even held together, the mohair and the Lana fingering is like super, super tiny yarn. I'm knitting this on 2.75 millimeter needles. So it's a little fiddly, and I thought there's no way I'm going to do color work with the hand that's still kind of coming back slowly, which is involved in the descent pullover, which I love, and I would highly recommend that pattern. But this pattern doesn't require any color work, so that way my hand can heal a little bit better. Yeah. All right, so in the last segment of the podcast, I've got some shout outs and some Cal ending and some giveaways and all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to roll right into that. First things first, I've talked to you guys about knitting bags before because I have a bunch of them, and I have a bunch of them from a bunch of different folks. And when I find a bag maker that I love, I just kind of stick with them, and I buy a bunch of their bags because I love having project bags that are big, like different sizes, big to small. And I love having, like, being able to support independent makers, and I can't sew. So anyone who can sew and make beautiful bags, I will definitely support you. I did the same with, I've been buying masks, fabric masks for myself and my son on Etsy, and we found a couple of folks that we really love that fit our faces and all that kind of stuff. So I love that I love supporting people who can sew. It's one of my favorite things to do. So speaking of that, this is Bags by Awesome Granny has come out with, she makes all kinds of different size bags. Usually there's like a small, medium, large. She does Knit Notions bags, and this is kind of a new thing for her. It's a really like a extra large size tote, and I have one that's actually full of a sweater in the living room right now. That's this same design, and here's her tag. So Bags by Awesome Granny is a duo of Bruce and Darlene York, and he actually does a lot of the sewing, and so does she. So the bags are beautifully made. I mean, the stitching is beautiful. I love them. They're big enough, especially these big tote ones are really big enough for a sweater project or a blanket project. I actually had the knit together blanket project in one of her bags and it fit like an entire blanket. So it's really nice to fit a sweater in here, and the straps are long enough that you can actually like put it on and carry it around. So Darlene, she's so sweet. I commented on her Instagram because she put up a couple of new bags, and I said, oh, I love your new bags. Are you gonna make any more of the big tote bags? And she said, well, tell me a fabric you like and I'll send you one. I thought, oh no, she did. She just sent me one. So thank you, Darlene, for sending this beautiful bag. I can't wait to get a sweater into this one. I have my dad's sweater actually in Darlene's other bag, in Bags by Awesome Granny's other bag. So it's the one that's out in the living room, and it's a version of the chimney sweater for my dad, and it all fits, all of the yarn and all the sweater and everything fits in that bag, so I love it. So thank you, Darlene. And I love your bags, and I hope other people find your bags and enjoy them as much as I do. So she's over on Etsy. I'll put a link over in the show notes, and you can go check out her selection of bags over on Etsy. The other thing I have to announce are the end of our Cowls for this past year. Yay! We did it! We made it! One of them was for Disc Stitch, which is Sia Brill's new knitting technique. And if you haven't checked out this book, you absolutely should. We have a thread over on the Ravelry group, and I'm not going to shut the threads down in any way. So people who are disc stitching can go over and disc stitch there as much as you want to. It's a really interesting technique that kind of doubles the fabric and makes a much more thicker, kind of like durable fabric. But you can also use disc stitch, as a lot of our Cal participants found out, for decorative things, or for doing double knitting, or for brioche, or just so many techniques that disc stitch kind of like melds into. So Sia Brill, wonderful new technique, really is something I've never seen before, and I enjoyed knitting up my swatch for this. Yeah, the winner of the prize for this Cal is Dave, and Dave knit up a bunch of different things. He did up one of the coasters from the back of the book, which is beautiful, and you can check it out over on the Ravelry group. One of these guys. And I think he was knitting up some brioche. He just really, Dave, way to go. You got into this, and I am so appreciative that you were here for the Cal. So I will find you something fun in my stash and send it out to you as a prize for getting through the Cal and creating some cool stuff. So thanks, Dave. And our other Cal was the Knits in Translation Cal, and that, I showed you guys my sweater pillow from that. And I finished a sweater, which was the Rosenblum sweater. You guys, if you're interested in the saga of that sweater, please go back and check out episodes like The Gorilla in the Room, for example. Yeah, those of you who have been here long enough know that was quite a Knits in Translation saga, but it was a wonderful experience, and I feel like I learned so much, and I learned so much from so many of you. We have that thread still going on in the Ravelry group, the Knits in Translation thread, and if you're interested in working on a Knits in Translation, head on over there, because there are people from around the world speaking tons of different languages who all participated in this Cal or who are willing to offer help. So our group is almost 1,000 people strong now, and I'm just so proud of all of you guys, and it's fun to go interact with you in the discussion boards. So keep it up, and thank you. So the winner of the Cal for Knits in Translation is Anita. And Anita, I contacted you on Ravelry, so let me know your address, and I will also find some fun things in the stash to send you as a prize for participating in that Cal. Thank you to everyone who put up finished objects in both of those threads, and who communicated and offered help and assistance to other people, and to Sia Brill herself for being in on our thread and answering questions. It's been a wonderful year, and I'm gonna have to think hard about what we do for our next Cal, because I want it to be just as fun and transformative as these last couple of Cals. So thank you all so much for being there and doing this together as a community. That was really incredibly impressive and fun for this last year. And the giveaway from last episode was from Rachel Fuller, and she sent in 2 Clara Parks books, Knitlandia and Vanishing Fleece, to be given away. So thank you so much, Rachel, for sending those books in. The winners of those books are Jennifer McKenna and Lori Hopner. And I've contacted both of them, and they will be getting their books in the mail shortly. So yeah, that was a really fun giveaway too. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sending in those books. It's wonderful to share Clara Parks. She's one of those knitting community characters that I absolutely have loved getting to know over the years through her books and her newsletters and just her yarn and everything about her. So thank you. So if you've hung in there this long, at the end of the podcast, I do have another giveaway for you. This one is sponsored by Amanda Eastman, who sent in the Shetland Wool Adventure Journal #1. Basically, she bought the digital version and she was accidentally mailed the print version, and she wanted to pass this on to someone else to enjoy. So thank you so much, Amanda, for sending this in. It's a beautiful journal created by Misa Hay, and it has tons of really beautiful photography, and it's about place and yarn and crafting. This is just beautiful. This is a walk through 4,000 years of Shetland history. I mean, it's gorgeous. So there's essays, there's tons of patterns in here, history, artists, artisans, makers, stuff about Shetland as a place. It's just a gorgeous. There's food. I just saw some delicious looking soup. There's hats, the Hesty hat, some beautiful Fair Isle colorwork, some shawls, some more mittens. I mean, this is gorgeous. So it's kind of half patterns and half place. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. I think I'm going to have to order a copy for myself. So Misa Hay and Shetland Wool Adventures, you can follow them on Instagram. I think that's just one of the many places you can follow them around. And basically, it sounds like Misa Hay was doing tours and classes and all kinds of other things, but the pandemic hit, and she decided that her love of publishing and wanting to create a journal, this was the right time, because she can't exactly, bring people in for tours of Shetland and things like that right now. So rather than that, she can take us all to Shetland in a beautiful journal. So I expect that there will be more issues coming out, and I think it's going to be a really fun thing to either subscribe to or follow along. And I think for those of us in the US who would like to get a copy, I'm thinking that the Woolly Thistle would be the place to go for that. She imports tons of great stuff, especially from the UK, but all over the world. And I think this is on her list of things, or it's either already there or she's going to have it available, I would guess. So let's do a giveaway for this. And what I'd like to know is, where would you go if you were living in the before days, or if you imagine a post-pandemic time of travel and whatever, travel and like moving around the world, where would you want to go? What do you want to do? Do you want to go to the Faroe Islands? Do you want to go to Shetland? Do you want to go to Australia? Do you want to, do you have some dream of finding out more about Japanese knitting? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments here, over on the Ravelry thread, or on the blog, and I will enter you to win this beautiful journal of the Shetland Wool Adventures Journal by Misa Hay. Thank you to Amanda Eastman for sending in this book, and good luck to everybody who wants to win the prize. I will do a random number thing, as I usually do 2 weeks from now, and announce the winner that way. Yeah, okay, so we made it. We made it through our cast. It's Sunday, it's beautiful. I think we're gonna go get some lunch and maybe sit outside and hang out with the dogs and just enjoy the rest of the day. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the next couple of weeks. Take good care. Bye-bye.